10. Charles DION McDowell. In late 2018, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office in Florida arrested 31-year-old Charles DION McDowell on a slew of drug-related charges, including possession of meth and cocaine with intent to sell. He was also accused of possessing drug equipment and fleeing from police. The agency posted the man's crime details and mugshot on Facebook, but people were more entertained by his massive neck than by the allegations he faced. The humorous comment started immediately, with one social media user writing that McDowell should sell advertising space on his neck. Another commentator joked about the suspect being up to his neck in charges. There was also a comment telling people to leave the man alone, because next time it could be you. McDowell's mugshot was shared over 250,000 times within a week of his arrest. Then he was arrested again in Alabama after cops laid spike strips down to disable his vehicle during a high-speed chase. He was charged with more drug offenses and driving with a revoked license. Naturally, the jokes about his neck continued. The unexpected attention created opportunities for McDowell, including talks about a possible MMA or boxing appearance. He also became Instagram famous. Trouble found McDowell again in early 2019, when his bond in Florida was revoked due to his Alabama charges. His stardom was short-lived, and he seems to have remained mostly out of the spotlight since then. 9. Michelle Allen. In late 2008, a mugshot of a woman in a cow costume went viral. It was strange to begin with, but what made it even weirder was the fact that it wasn't even Halloween. The arrest happened over a month before Halloween, when police in Middletown, Ohio, responded to complaints about a woman in a cow costume blocking traffic. They arrived to find the familiar face of Michelle Allen, who'd been arrested nearly 50 times before, according to Major Mark Hoffman. In addition to obstructing traffic, Allen allegedly chased children and urinated on someone's porch. The police report stated that she smelled strongly of alcohol and threatened the arresting officer. As a result, Allen was charged with disorderly conduct. Hoffman told local station Fox 19 that when she appeared at her arraignment hearing, she also challenged people to suck her udders. Police later learned that Allen was wearing the cow costume as part of a promotional job for a local haunted trail, and that an employee came by to pick up the cow mask. However, they reportedly didn't get the rest of the costume back because Allen refused to remove it during her 30-day jail stay. 8. Matthew McNally and Joey Miller. After receiving a call about two men with painted faces robbing an apartment in 2009, police in Carroll, Iowa, went out looking for the culprits. Just a few blocks away from the crime scene, they pulled over a vehicle matching a witness's description of the thieves' getaway car. The officers were shocked to see that both the driver and passenger's faces were covered in permanent marker. Cops are used to encountering unusual sights and people, but this was the first of its kind for the responding officers. Police Chief Jeff Kaler seemed utterly baffled, telling CNN that he'd never heard of someone using Sharpies to alter their appearance. The poorly disguised suspects were identified as 23-year-old Matthew McNally and 20-year-old Joey Miller. Detectives theorized that they targeted the home they were accused of burglarizing because one of the men suspected his girlfriend of cheating on him with the man who lived there. Kaler said that alcohol was thought to be involved and that the attempted break-in may have been an impulsive drunk decision in hopes of scaring the resident. The judge overseeing the case ultimately dropped the charges against McNally and Miller due to a lack of evidence. In all fairness, the men were unarmed when the police pulled them over. There were no signs of them actually entering the intended victim's apartment, and nobody was injured. The biggest disappointment to the outcome is the fact that we'll never know why they scribbled on their faces with permanent markers. 7. Kevin Gibson. On April 20th, 2016, Miami Beach police questioned a man who was spotted drinking a Heineken beer in public. Officers searched him and found 70 grams of marijuana packed into small bags, presumably in preparation for customers celebrating 420. 59-year-old Kevin Gibson was charged with drinking in public, possession, and intent to sell, and subsequently spent the rest of the stoner holiday in jail. Many wondered why he was sporting a literal half-beard in his mugshot, as if he'd been interrupted in the middle of shaving. A little over a year after Gibson first went viral, he was arrested again in 2017. This time he faced felony narcotics charges, but he had a long rap sheet dating back to before his beard caught nationwide attention. His lengthy list of convictions includes burglary, robbery, grand theft, kidnapping, disorderly intoxication, battery, trespassing, loitering, and dealing cocaine and marijuana. A booking photo from when Gibson was incarcerated between the two more recent arrests shows that he gave up his unusual facial hair while in the custody of the Florida Department of Corrections. Nobody seems to know the story behind his wild look, but he sported the half-beard in more than one mugshot, indicating that he must prefer it for some reason. 6. James Miller. While out on patrol in the early morning hours after Halloween night in 2009, police in Oxford, Ohio spotted a vehicle driving the wrong way on a one-way street. They pulled the driver over and found a young man dressed as a breathalyzer machine who had an open can of Bud Light in his center console. In an ironic twist, he performed poorly on sobriety tests, and his blood alcohol level measured at 0.158, nearly twice the state's legal limit for driving. According to an arrest report, the officers also found what was left of a case of beer in the passenger seat and the trunk. 18-year-old James Miller was charged with underage drinking, DUI, open container, and a one-way street violation. He was booked for the offenses and was later released to his girlfriend. His mugshot shows his appropriately themed costume, which displayed 3 levels of sobriety: boring, life of the party, and sotally tober. It also had a cleverly placed plastic tube with instructions that read, "Blow here." 5. James FIEBELKORN. After seeing a man doing donuts in the main street of their small town in 2015, concerned residents in Randolph, New York called the police. 59-year-old James FIEBELKORN was charged with DUI and several other offenses, but was released to a sober third party. The local press published news of his arrest along with the mugshot of FIEBELKORN with an amused grin on his face. History repeated itself the very next day, when neighbors reported seeing the suspect doing donuts in his front yard. FIEBELKORN told officers that he was trying to get rid of the grass in his front yard and was once again arrested, this time on a 4th-degree mischief charge. Instead of releasing him, the judge imposed bail and FIEBELKORN was taken to jail. The local media once again published his booking photo, which shows an even bigger smile on his face. News stations and journalists outside the region started picking up on the story, with one blogger describing FIEBELKORN as the Homer Simpson of drunk driving. 3 weeks later, he was in trouble yet again and was charged with violating an order of protection, according to WIVB. And, for a third time, FIEBELKORN grinned for the camera in a situation where smiling is the last thing on most people's minds. 4. Robert Edward BURT. In Somerset County, Maine, 19-year-old Robert Edward BURT was ordered to serve 2 days behind bars for an operating under the influence charge in 2014. The young man had bailed himself out after his initial arrest months earlier, but the court ultimately determined that his debt to society included 48 hours in jail. When BURT showed up to do his time, he wore an orange t-shirt with his mugshot from his previous arrest on the front. The new photo that was taken as he was booked into jail will forever feature his old mugshot. Beneath the picture, his shirt bore the words Family Reunion 8/8-8/10-2014, suggesting that he may have had the chance to catch up with some relatives during his brief stint. BURT's clever display earned him a lot of attention on the internet. Luckily, he hasn't appeared in the news for any arrests since then, indicating that he's avoided adding a third mugshot to his collection. 3. Adam Roberts. It might be a bad idea to cover your face in tattoos if you're going to commit crimes, but Adam Roberts did exactly that before he became a suspect in a burglary case in 2013. The 24-year-old was accused of robbing 28 storage units by the police in his hometown of Godfrey, Illinois. The missing property included electronics, video game equipment, TVs, a refrigerator, fishing gear, paintings, antique furniture, and a sewing machine. Law enforcement released the suspect's mugshots in hopes that members of the public would remember buying things from him, which would help tie him to the stolen items. Commenting on Robert's distinctive skull tattoo covering most of his face, Madison County Sheriff's Captain Mike Dixon told the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that the unique ink was the oddest thing he'd seen in more than 20 years of working law enforcement. Roberts was charged with 3 counts of felony burglary in connection with the thefts. However, it's unclear whether anyone came forward with information about the crimes. 2. SHAWN Paul MELONAKOS. Police in Odessa, Texas responded to the scene of a crime in 2018 when they received a complaint about a man stealing from a thrift store. A customer had confronted 36-year-old SHAWN Paul MELONAKOS after noticing him trying to leave without paying for the merchandise he was carrying. MELONAKOS allegedly reacted by picking up a large rock and throwing it at the man. Fearing for his life, the customer pulled out a gun and fired 1 round, but luckily nobody was hurt. The civilian and his friend then chased MELONAKOS down and restrained him until the police arrived. According to the arrest report, the suspect initially gave a false name and birth date to responding officers. However, this wasn't his first brush with the law, and they eventually figured out who he really was. They also discovered that he had an arrest warrant for a parole violation and found methamphetamine in his possession. Following the shoplifting incident, he was charged with robbery, parole violation, possession of a controlled substance, and failure to identify. Most people aren't very happy when they get arrested, but MELONAKOS went viral for having an ecstatic open-mouthed grin in his mugshot. For reasons that nobody ever figured out, he looks genuinely happy in the photo. 1. Sarah SEAWRIGHT. In 2015, 24-year-old Sarah SEAWRIGHT became the latest person to earn the nickname Prison Bae for their attractive mugshots in recent years. She was arrested in Little Rock, Arkansas for failing to appear in court on a warrant for careless driving and driving without insurance. In her booking photo, the young woman looks more like she's about to go on a date rather than a holding center. Luckily, she cleared up her legal issues and was a free woman once again after agreeing to pay several $100s in fines for her original charges. SEAWRIGHT's failure to appear charge was dismissed. However, these weren't her only brushes with the law. In 2012, she and a young man were arrested for armed robbery. The defendants were accused of pulling up to an acquaintance in a Target parking lot and offering him a ride, then driving behind the store and robbing him at gunpoint. For her role in the incident, SEAWRIGHT pleaded guilty to 1 felony in exchange for getting the rest of her charges dropped and received 5 years of probation. Unfortunately, she's landed back in hot water with the law several times since her mugshot first launched her to fame. SEAWRIGHT was arrested and extradited to Texas in 2021 for charges that law enforcement declined to disclose publicly, although it appears as though she was arrested again in 2022. Would you rather have an embarrassing mugshot go viral or appear in your local police log for an embarrassing crime? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye!